This is Philippe Matthews on the Philippe Matthews Show After Hours with Emunah Y'srael, the creator of Soulonomics 101 and author of The Angry Black Woman Syndrome, revisited in the Bidmar, Midbar Journal, and my brother's keeper. We are having, in the green room, a heated discussion about what just happened today, where we saw the murder of Anton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And yeah, we're going to have a conversation about it. And I've got some things to say. Obviously, Emunah has some things to say. And as usual, she'll probably calm me down and help her brother out and bring some really historical perspective to this. Welcome back, sweetie.
Thank you for having me, Brother Philippe. Thank you for having me. You know, like you said, all praise be to the Most High. This conversation is, yeah, like I said, we could get started because, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, we're originally going to talk about Leslie Jones because we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. And that was our original conversation, to talk about how she couldn't find a white European designer to dress her for the premiere of Ghostbusters,
right?
And how she was upset about that, and how she has a short memory and she'll remember this. And I remember you saying, it's like, you know how many melanated designers there are in the country, in the world, that she could go to that are equal to, if not better than the Eurasian designers that we know of here in America that are household names. And you know, it's kind of sad that we keep reaching out and reaching back to people who don't want to be around us. They don't want to have anything to do. You know, there's a certain population just don't want to have anything to do with us. I had a conversation over the last week with Dr. Joy DeGrew, who we're doing a show with, you and I, next week. I can't wait. That's going to be historic.
Awesome.
To have you on there with Dr. Joy ripping it up. But we were having this conversation, and she said, Philippe, I'm proposing some stuff that's not even in my lane. I said, what are you talking about, Doc? She says, you know, I think we should bring back a certain form of segregation. I was like, damn, I've been thinking that myself. And that is to create our own communities and stop trying to fit in with people who don't want you. You know, it's like being in a relationship or chasing somebody who don't want you.
And it's funny you said that, because I made that analogy today on a video I just uploaded. And I think, Brother Philippe, what we're seeing today with the young man I think he was like 37, so he's older.
37.
Yeah, he's 37. In Baton Rouge with Leslie Jones. The whole thing is interconnected. I have to bring it back to where I study, right? If you were in that space and time of the slave plantation, at the same time that Missy Ann is giving you her cast off, you may hear a narrative that John Boy is about to get hung because he sassed such and such. So just the way it's happening all at the same time for us, for our ancestors, those who were in this space and time of antebellum South, it would have been happening. She's very excited, and then all of a sudden somebody comes running in the house and they say, hey, guess what happened? And you know, someday she throws projecting right now how a scene of what we're experiencing this last week alone would have happened. Some slave who was mixed started to sass his people and preaching the wrong thing, like in the case of Jesse Williams, preaching the wrong thing to the people, and maybe it's him they're going to come after now. You understand? And so all of this would have been happening at the same time. So sometimes we may see that we're overwhelmed with what we're experiencing, but the reality is they were overwhelmed and they did not have time to process. This is why we say today about the PTSD, about the post-traumatic slave syndrome, because you didn't have time to process anything. You were happy, you were sad. Someone was born, somebody died, somebody was raped, somebody was murdered. You understand what I'm saying? And all of this is like this kind of hodgepodge, this crazy looking, unclean pot of gumbo. I mean, I don't know. You caught me at a time where I actually just saw the video. And the reality is, when I look at it through the lens today, it's like, oh man, that's gruesome. When I look at it through the lens of how many narratives I've read, I'm like, that was, I mean, it's not comparing it to diminishing it, but the way they took him out, in another context, they would have whipped you, they would have stripped you, and then they would have loaded you in front of the town, and then they would have whipped you, and then they would have did all these stuff to you. And you understand what I'm saying? And so it was this more torturous process. In the video, I heard 4 shots and he died. But that same fear, that same energy, it's still in the earth. So when I can, the thought process of I'm going to take you out, even when the situation does not warrant it.
Right.
And that's what we're dealing with today. I hope I didn't lose anybody, because, you know, just imagine
you lost
that
anybody, they need to, they ask need to be lost. I'm just saying, if they don't get this, if you don't get this and understand this, ladies and gentlemen, you don't need to be watching this program. I'm just being real. I'm just being real. You know, please turn it off. Go somewhere else. There's a billion other damn YouTube channels your punk ass should be watching other than this one if you don't understand what we're talking about.
Philippe is a little turned up. Y'all please excuse him.
Yes, excuse me. So speaking of turned up, so you know, I have been you know, doing these interviews with these great people and doing the research on these laws that America was founded on before America was founded.
Correct.
And I have come to and I don't even know if it's a radical conclusion. I just think, to me, it's a logical conclusion. But, you know, I'm going to share it publicly, and people can you know, comment and deal with it as they please. And that is, police brutality is our ISIS. Police brutality in America is our terrorism. It is domestic terrorism that we are dealing with on a daily basis. ISIS is killing their own and killing rich white people who can afford to travel to these countries. ISIS is not in Compton, Chicago, Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Oaktown, or you know, the ISIS is not coming there. ISIS is not killing melanated men and women by the droves. The United States Police Department is, and they are our ISIS right now. Domestic terrorism is what we are up against. And we got to change our mindset and strategy when you're dealing with a terrorist.
You know, you know, that's a great observation. And it's one that I think many people would be in agreement that this has always been the case ever since the arrival to this portion of the hemisphere. This has so it's not
at war. We've never not been at war.
Yeah, you've never not been a target.
Right.
Yeah, never. Yeah, there's never been a time where, oh, you know what? Let me just let them rock. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a time where, and like I said, I've just read countless narratives, and even in my life here, you see it's the same thing. It's the only thing that has changed is the weaponry and maybe your uniform. But it's the same mentality. It's the same segment of society that they empower. So, for instance, in that time, maybe it wasn't going to be the rich white planter, European planter. It wasn't going to be this segment. It was going to be the segment of society that couldn't afford it, but they liked the power that they got from being able to police the lessers, which would be the quote unquote black people. It's the same thing today. So your police officers are $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. You can't afford to be, you know, in certain spaces, And you don't want to be all the way down there. So here's my power. My power is to lord over these individuals. Same social makeup, same economic makeup, and same motivation. I want to, because when I saw the video, like I told you right before I came on here, the way they slammed him down and then pretended to warn him and then popped 4 shots and killed him. I'm like, at what point, at what point was all of this necessary?
That's terrorism. That's military style terrorism.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Plain and simple. When you and I know about the anti-miscegenation laws that came into being in 1681, and I've done several interviews with the researcher and attorney Jacqueline Badalore, who wrote the book Birth of a White Nation, and how the cluster of laws that came after the anti-miscegenation laws of 1681 created what's known as a new bottom, because it was the 1%, the elite, that created the white race. In other words, white, black was never used as descriptors of a people prior to that moment in time where it became institutionalized in law. And so what they did is that all of the black folk, Africans who were living here already, who were married to different people, all the interracial marriages that were legal and everything was fine, all of that all of a sudden became completely illegal. Chattel slavery, everything came into being as a result of this new bottom that they created, where you couldn't buy gunpowder to protect your family. You could not sue a white person for any reason. You could not. You couldn't function. Right. And so, what was sinister, sociopathic, and genius at the same time, depending upon what side you look at. They created this new bottom. So white folk, the white elite said, well, we don't want to have the poor whites coming at us, because the anti-miscegenation laws came about because of Bacon's Rebellion. And they did not want this level of rebellion to come against the white elite again. So they created these laws that created 3 different distinct class systems for 2 different races. Class systems was the 1%, the elite, then all the white, then the poor white people, and then black or melanated people. We were at the very bottom. What this did was create, we're talking about the police officers, people in blue collar jobs, white people uneducated and unfunded. They then became empowered by law because they were better than the black person or the Negro that was under them. And it gave them that false sense of power and false sense of self-esteem. Yes. Because they still were poor. So the laws, the elite, was smart. They said, we're not going to make you rich white people like us. Right. We're just going to make, we're going to demean another race of people, create a new race of people, and demean them so you can feel like you have a chance at, quote unquote, the American dream.
Yeah.
So I say that to say this, that if, which is fact, that this country was founded on racism by white supremacists, by a thinking, a sociopathic thinking that killed, mutilated, terrorized the indigenous people in this continent, in this country. And so, in my opinion, this whole country was founded on terrorism by terrorists. I know I'm turned up. I told you, you got to calm me down, Emunah, because I'm going crazy.
I mean, the reality is, like you said, we have to speak in clear, defined terms. Because what I'm learning and seeing in the observation of the 2 narratives is that one gets to define and the other gets to be defined. You understand? So the one who has the power says, oh, no, I get to define and give you the picture of what terrorism looks like, what oppression looks like, and then you just get to receive it. And so what you're doing in this conversation and what we're doing is redefining, like, wait a minute, based on the definition in and of itself, this is what this is. And this is what we have to do. We have to step back from the narrative and clearly separate what is what. And before I saw this case here, this morning I woke up to a GMA, Good Morning America article. And that's what caught my attention this morning. The article says something like slave descendant. I don't even want to misquote. The article says something, and it goes along with what we're talking about right now. It speaks of, this is the article. It says, hold on one second. It says, slave descendant unites with plantation owner for heartwarming dinner 181 years after families lived there. So I read that the headline to myself about 3 or 4 times. Like, yes, wait a minute, Brother Philippe. It says slave descendant.
What did you just?
Yes, unites with and look, the same time that the young man is being gunned down in the street, this article goes up. Because I'm saying to myself, this headline sounds funny. Slave descendant unites with plantation owner for heartwarming dinner 181 years after families lived there. When I began to read the article, I found out that there was a black man, and I'm going to use quotations because that's my thing, who had a white grandfather, and he was always concerned as a child, how did we get a white grandfather? Everybody in my family is so-called black. So when he got older, he started to check his genealogy. So basically, he found all his genealogy, and this past week, he went to this plantation in South Carolina, the Waverly Plantation, of where he visits, and guess what? A distant cousin is still the owner of that plantation. And they invite him and his family to dinner. And the article gives you the spin that this is heartwarming. You should feel good about this. And anybody who has an objection to getting beyond the past because you can't change it, you have a small mind. This is all in the article, Brother Philippe. I didn't even get a chance.
Unbelievable.
And so I'm like,
this is why I don't even search back for stuff like that, because I'm going to blow some shit up.
I didn't even, it just popped up.
If I found a plantation that my family came from, you will see me on CNN.
Brother Philippe, no,
you hear what I said?
He sat down at the table.
A heartwarming dinner. It'll be the last.
Why did you call this dinner heartwarming? The plantation has never left that family since 1768.
So let's look at that now. Let's look at the wealth that was transferred from chattel slavery, from the man that he's having, from the slave, descendant of slaves that he's having dinner with. And he can't afford that plantation.
No.
And they're giving him just a dinner.
The plantation is operational. It's open for tours. It's open for viewing and weddings and events. And he's saying, the black man is saying, you know, we have to get beyond this. And I'm saying to myself, this is part of the problem. Yeah. You get to walk where your ancestors' blood was shed. Oh, by the way, I didn't give you the sweetest part yet. I got to get Jamaican on you for a second, Brother Philippe. Jamaicans, when they tell a story, they'll be like, no, that's not the sweetest part. The sweetest part is, and it's not even that sweet, when you go onto his blog, of which they link to, his family was not croppers, they were breeders.
Whoa.
So they bred, he found out the genealogy of breeding his grandmother.
Oh man, don't get me started on that one, because I've done, you know, I've had the experts on for that too.
Breeders. His family was from a breeding farm, Brother Philippe. And he sits down, and I said to myself, and I did a video, I said, look, you meeting your cousin is your foreparents worked side by side with their siblings, one white and one black. Just meeting them did not absorb everything that happened to your family. Right. They were always there. The father would be right there while his child was in the field or serving him tea. Right. But again, what you said in the abusive relationship, the minute you acknowledge me, The minute you accept me as being your family, let's forget about everything else. You know, the narcissistic relationship, you can get cursed out, you could get kicked out the house, you can get boxed down, but the minute they say, baby, I'm so sorry, let's go to dinner. What does the abuse say? Okay.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, and this goes back to what we're going to be talking about with Dr. Joy, and I've come to the conclusion that all melanated people in this country suffer from some form of post-traumatic slave syndrome. You might be in denial of it, or you might be completely unconscious of it, but you cannot wake up, be born in this country, and not be affected by how you got here ancestral. You can't.
You know, unless you're, like you said, unless you are disconnected and detached from your reality, because I know that he married a European.
Right. Now, I'm going to say something else that a lot of people go, oh my God, Philippe, why are you saying that? Look, we all have various different mechanisms for coping.
Yes.
Right. So I don't judge my people anymore who are out there selling drugs or doing harm and doing crime, because they're in a condition that created them, and that condition is not their fault. It's not their problem. Now they're accountable and it will be held accountable. But if you are put into a place where you have to kill to survive, then that's what you have to do, because it's the conditions that created poverty in America. It's the conditions that created academic castration in America. It's the conditions that created illiteracy amongst our children in America. It is not us who says, oh, here's how we can qualify it. Has any one of you ever ran up to your mother and father and said, when I grow up, I want to be illiterate, I want to be broke, and I want to be tired? No, it was never a damn goal for you to be in the situation that you're in right now. It was a goal and an agenda prior to your arrival, prior to your mother's arrival, prior to your mother's mother's and your mother's mother's arrival, for you to never have an opportunity to be potentialized and to reach that higher level of potential. As Dr. Gerald Durley, civil rights leader, said in one of my interviews with him, we are looking for not equality, we're looking for parity. Parity means that we just want to have the ability to have the potential to reach our higher selves. And if you can't give us that, then this is what the fallout looks like. So of course you're going to create a criminal when you don't give them a chance to have a job. You don't give them a chance to have an education, to get a job or to create a job. When you don't give them the proper housing and proper environment for them to raise their families and children, what are you going to get? You're going to get a criminal. So I don't care done and what you're about and all of that. Now, so that's that one section. But there's another segment of our population that we need to address, and those are the coons. Now, some of you know who you. Now I know Emunah's smiling. She's like, "Damn, Philippe's going there." It's like, "Yep." Some of you know who you are. Some of you who are out there that are, and we know the coons. I just popped up a video on Shock Metaphysics about of Malcolm X talking about it. And we saw those coons and we saw examples of that in Roots. And you, the coons, need to be called out as well, because in this war, you're going to be left behind and you're going to get your feelings hurt. All right, Emunah, come on in and calm me down.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that one, Brother Philippe, because here's another side of that conversation, the coon conversation.
Okay.
That's their survival mechanism. What you call it said it best in one of the I think it was Roots. He said Chicken George character in Roots. He said there's no or somebody said it. It says no right way to be a slave.
I remember that.
Remember that. And so that is their survival mechanism. When they say if you have, and I'm not justifying it, I'm saying and on my research on the word coon, in the eyes of racism, white supremacy, or this oppressive system, everybody's a coon in their eyes. To tell you the truth, because they say coon is slave. You see, so everybody in their eyes is a coon, but the one who we now begin to classify as coon is the one who is trying to appease the system. But in his mind, I want to live.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
See, this
So
is
this
why I can't do this show by myself, Emunah. I can't do it. This is why you're on there. I said, I know Emunah's going to bring perspective and calm my punk ass down because I'm upset.
I know it's okay to be upset, but when you, just like what you just said, the person who's going out there dealing poison to their own community, the thought process is, I need to eat, my family needs to eat, I want to live. You have the woman who goes out into society and says, I'm going to do what they say because I need to eat, I want to live. Remember, you're in survival mode. The coon, man, he says, hey, when my brother, he fought against him, he killed him in the street. I don't want that to happen to me. Hey, why don't I just follow their instruction and do what they say because I want to live? And this is the narrative. If you listen to and see what is behind what everyone is doing, what's behind it is, I want to live. Now, to what degree for those who said, no, I don't want to live like that, that's something different. And really, it is, how do you want to live?
Wow.
How do you want to live?
That is powerful. Thank you for that. This is why I have you on the show, Emunah. This is why you're part of the network. Because you do that. Now you have changed me. I will change my narrative as a result of this show.
You gotta put the coon in your survival narrative.
That's exactly what I have to do. I was separating it out, and now you're saying, no, Philippe, that's a survival technique and tactic, a mechanism of survival of the brain. It's like, oh, snap. You know what? I can see that.
You can see that?
Absolutely see that.
Not gonna push against. It's like the little. There was a young youth in there was a young man who graduated valedictorian of his class a month ago. And he had a beard. And basically the school ran up on him and said, against school policy, you can't have a beard or you don't walk. So he was like, no, I had my beard all year. I'm valedictorian of my class. I'm not shaving my beard. So they said, boom, cool, you don't walk. And then it became a big news story about that, them not allowing him to walk because he declared, but you may have they said they told others and they shaved their beard. Now, I don't know if they were black or white, but listen, somebody's seeing this situation and saying, but I want to walk. I don't want to disappoint my family. Let me cower to the system, they would say to themselves. Let me do what they're saying. This is the reason why during slavery in these times, they would bring out somebody to hang in public viewing. They would beat you in public viewing. Why? So that they would scare the other ones into submission. So this is why I say that when you see somebody being a quote unquote coon, they have been scared into submission, not because, hey, because they're like, I don't want that to happen to me. And everybody doesn't have the same spirit. Everybody doesn't have the same fortitude. Everybody doesn't have the same level of resistance. So, you know,
I like that.
It's all survival. Because the coon is in the same situation you are. They're just trying to make sure it's not that bad. I'm not saying, okay, and for anybody listening, this is not Emunah giving her stamp of approval on whether or not yourself. I'm not giving my stamp on approval on any of it. I'm just trying to understand what it is and possibly why it is. So yeah, Brother Philippe.
Beautiful explanation and a deeper, more historical understanding of coonery and what that is that we're all part of it. I like that. I don't like it, but I understand it. You know what I'm saying?
It was one day. Somebody kept saying, okay, my parents are from the Caribbean, so we have this level of supremacy and subjugation through slavery, but it's different than it is in America. Americans has so much fascinated me because the Caribbean is like a whole nation of a whole lot of dark-skinned, melanated people, and the Europeans are the lesser class, although they still rule. But over here, it's a little bit different, and this is where I'm trying to break down the understanding. So I didn't grow up hearing the word coon, and I'm like, what is this word? So I'm like newbie on the block. I'm like, what is this word? What does it mean? Why do they keep saying that? And those truly, and people are like, yeah, this person is a coon, that person is a coon. I'm like, apparently it's something historical. Anyway, long story short, when I did the research and they have these wives' tales of what it could be, what it boiled down to was this loan word from Portuguese, barracoon, where they would put slaves in when they waited for the slave ships to take them away off the coast. And so coons would be in these barracoons. And so it's a shortened word for barracoon, which is these crude prison type structures that they would lock slaves in. And so when I say everybody's a coon, your king went into captivity, Your priests went into captivity. Your wise men went into captivity. Your wives, your princesses, your queens. So at that point, everybody was reduced to coons. And so when a European says coon, he ain't just meaning the one that's on his side. He mean everybody who is descendant of those that they took into captivity.
Wow. This is that's my Emunah Y'srael, ladies and gentlemen. That's, you know, that's my sister right there. That's my sister. All right, so what are we going to do here, Emunah?
You know, Brother Philippe, if I may, I think we need working mechanisms for those who are listening, because the amount of, and this is where I do in the Soulonomics, because we need practical solutions of how to begin to purge ourselves while we're in this level of battle, spiritual and mental and emotional, so that it doesn't pile up. Like if we just new story, death, hurt, pain, savvy, and you don't decompress and you don't let that out, it will drive you crazy. So we need practical solutions. You see that breath that you just did? Breathing is amazing. We need to teach our people to breathe again, to learn how to pull in and then release all of that negative energy out of your body. You need to learn how to turn off everything and sit still for at least 10-15 minutes a day, just meditating. Not bringing in no deity or anything else, just getting in touch with your breath, because that is your very life force. We need practical solutions because people are running here and there trying to find out, how do I deal with this? Are we going to go take it to, you know, drugs? Are we going to go to alcohol, which we're only going to keep hurting ourselves? You understand? We have to learn that, yes, this is where we are now. How do we survive? Not only just survive, but be able to, like I said, cleanse ourselves and not allow it to part. That just came on my mind because you just breathed. And that is one of the ways of which we could begin to center our mind, at least daily. And that's by breathing.
I appreciate that. Because, you know, we haven't talked about it as much as we should. And that is, you know, you are a healer. And that's what Soulonomics is about. And you spell Soulonomics S-O-U-L, L-O-N-O-M-I-C-S.
Right.
And let's talk about Soulonomics. Let's talk about, you know, as you know, you're going to be on the show with Dr. Joy. Now, I've got a surprise guest coming on, which is Dr. Howard C. Stevenson.
All right.
And Dr. Stevenson, Dr. Joy wouldn't have gotten her PhD if it were not for Dr. Stevenson, because he was a major part of her PhD program. She doesn't know he's coming on.
Ooh.
Yeah, of course, she might be watching this now, knows. But anyway, I'm like, dude, you're talking on the internet. What the hell are you doing, Philippe? This ain't a private conversation in the green room. What the hell? But so I'll try to make sure this doesn't get to her, but I'm sure somebody's going to send it and say, hey, Dr. Joe, I guess who's going to be on the show Monday? It's like, oh, that's dead. Anyway. So Dr. Stevenson talks about, and these are new terms that I had not heard of before, but now I use, and that is racial microaggressions. And racial microaggressions is what we experience every day when we have something that happens to us, or someone does something to us, either directly or indirectly, that reminds us of the racism in this country. And waking up this morning and hearing about Anton Sterling, that was a racial microaggression. And it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's like it builds up, and sometimes it's completely unconscious, because it's not just the microaggression that you heard today. It's the one that you were feeling maybe before you went to bed last night, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 years ago, 30 years ago, and all of it builds up. And the next thing you know, you're drug addicted, alcoholic, sex addicted, some kind of addiction, some kind of problem, a heart condition, high blood pressure, all. And you're like, what's wrong with me? It's like, well, all of these microaggressions have built up to a toxic level that is now manifesting physically. And
yes, so even though they may not be killing you directly, they're killing you by proxy, because now you're allowing your environment. It's like when you see something like that happens with somebody who looks like you, or your cousin, or your brother, or your son, or your grandson, whoever, it affects you, right? But if we don't have spaces like this where we speak, spaces where you express yourself, spaces where you purge this energy, because when you see something or hear something, understand that you just absorb that energy. And like you said, it's now circulating all up in your body. But if it's negative energy, it turns your body acidic. And what can thrive in acidic? Now we're going into the health department now. What thrives in acidic environments? And you just named some things that now you're going to do as a point of every time you see something, you get angry. That's your blood pressure going up and down. That's going to be affecting your heart. That's going to be affecting your mind. You understand? So now we have to make sure that we balance this with the knowledge that we know. What can people do in their daily lives so that this does not build up? Sort of like a plaque on your soul, because we can try to take all of the problems of the world on our shoulders only to take your own self out. Now that ain't wise either,
right?
And so like I said, when I saw you go, I'm like breathing. It is amazing when you clear your mind. And like when I first tried to start to do it, you will begin to hear yourself. Did I close the door? I need some water. I got to go to the bathroom? No. What's that sound? Like, you will see how busy your mind is. You're like, will you be quiet? And so now you're learning to center yourself. And you say, am I done yet? What am I supposed to be thinking about? You're supposed to be thinking about nothing.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be thinking about absolutely nothing. And that is a discipline. That's where I'm at. I'm in self-discipline. How do I learn to discipline myself? So that even though my environment is happening and around me, it is not totally in control of me. I love that because right now we're very reactive, and we have to learn to be more proactive to what's going on in and around us.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so Soulonomics. Now, so somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I want you to be my coach. I want you to be my mentor. I want you to work with me, Emunah. And I'm gonna use your term. I wrote it down. You saw me probably taking notes. I want you to help me. I have built up this plaque on my soul. I want you to. Yeah, that was beautiful. I want you to help me remove the plaque from my soul. How can people get in contact with you to do that? And what is your process?
Okay, the process usually is sometimes people reach out to me. I haven't started the coaching thing yet because I already know that's some heavy stuff. And this is why I say soul improvement is an inside job. Soul improvement is an inside job, meaning I can only, and everyone else who's in this space can only help you to that point, but I cannot do the work for you. And so I didn't even release the book yet because I was working on my brother, my keeper. But here's the next one that's coming, Brother Philippe. It's done. And basically what I would
why do I not have a copy of this?
Because I didn't release it yet, Brother Philippe. It's the proof. See right there, it's the proof. It's not.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. Literally, you just got that. Okay.
No, I mean, I do a lot of work behind the scenes, but usually they come to you because something is bothering them now. And what I tend to do is listen to the thing and then help them to see what that thing is connected to. You understand what I'm saying? So like somebody would be really upset about their children. Okay, blah, 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 you're talking. Okay, why is this really upsetting to you? And hopefully questionnaires and questions and dialogue will help them to get to the root of the issue. And once they get to the root of the issue, I say to them, you got to do the work. This is something where, and one of the things that helped me very early in life was beginning to write my own story. And I promise you, that is the most cathartic, therapeutic experience, because what you're going to do is remember things the way you think you remember them. And then you're going to begin to source people in and around you that can give you a little bit more insight of what was really happening. And it helps you to grow up from this thought that I've been holding on. They didn't love me because blah, 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 blah. Maybe you speak to your grandmother. Maybe you speak to your uncle. Maybe you speak to your brother who says, no, this also was happening. And so you help them to grow that story up from maybe that 5-year-old or that 6-year-old to now the adult. And so in that way, they begin to let go of these things of blame and disappointment and all these things and understand that it happened, but it may not happen exactly the way you remember it because there were other elements that you were not privy to. And that's one of the first, and I promise they don't really come back that quick after that. Because once you set them to do the work, you know, they come back after they got another major problem.
Right. Well, you know, you bring up a very good point, Emunah, and that is accountability.
Okay.
Is what makes kings and queens.
Yeah, you have to be accountable.
You have to be accountable, and you have to do the work. There is no shortcut.
There's no shortcuts
To this work.
I can't do it for you. Philippe can't do it for you. You can watch 100 million YouTube videos. Right? You can watch 100 million. I like that number, right? And you still will be jacked up after all of those videos.
You're probably more jacked up because you're just watching them and they doing nothing but they doing the work. I know damn well I'd be screwed up. I'd be a wreck.
Oh my goodness.
Lord,
yes.
Let me watch 100 million YouTube videos on police brutality and all of this stuff. I'd be messed up. Yeah.
Because that's
and not do the work.
That oftentimes in this society too, we become intellectually obese. If you understand what I'm saying.
Go ahead on now. I like that.
I'm dropping some stuff for you know, our brother Philippe. I wrote a poem a long time ago. I got to low-code the poem. That's when I'll be in my poetic mode. But this intellectual obesity makes us think that the more that we consume all of this information is the smarter we become. And it's not true. It just means that you can argue a lot. It just means that you can become, you know, begin to feel like you're an elitist, like everybody else is beneath you because they don't know this little secret piece of information. But the person who applies it to their life, the person who has changed themselves, supersedes the amount of knowledge that any person can give them who has not moved off the couch. And so Soulonomics teaches us, me anyway, because Soulonomics, I did my own, you know, somebody said, Emunah, you might be an anthropologist at heart because you get to make up words in anthropology. So I'm like, look, man.
I love it. That is brilliant, man. That is so freaking brilliant. Wow.
The Soulonomics is studying yourself and how you relate to your environment around you. This is why I like giving analogies, Brother Philippe, because for the people who are listening, I could use a whole lot of words that at the end you say, man, she really smart, but I don't know what in the world she just said. You understand what I'm saying? Or I can paint a narrative for you that when you go home, you're like, I can relate. I want to be able to relate to myself and you as well. And speaking pictures, this is how we learn. And pictures and narratives that you will remember a story more quicker than you will remember a formula. Yes. So if I put the formula in the story, we're good to go.
Sweet. I love this. This is good.
We're good to go.
How can people get in contact with you, Emunah, and how can they? When now, you know, I'm going to push you now about Soulonomics. I want to know when that book is coming out. You're going to have to prove that.
It's already cocked and loaded. You understand what I'm saying? Actually, and the course, I already designed the course right now. And maybe we could talk together and do the official launch. I have the course, which I actually did videos, step by step, breaking down my of each chapter, hoping literally holding your hand along the way. And this is why I did that. So the course is also available. I just didn't release it yet. The reason I did it is the Bar Midbar Journal, which you keep reading. The first one I did in 2010. I released it. It's a little thin book with just questions that I prompt you to ask. And Brother Philippe, to this day, 6 years later, no one has completed it except for me. And every time I ask them, how is it going? They're like, oh man, this is too hard. Because
really?
Yes, because you have to ask yourself.
Is that available on Amazon?
It's available. And the way I did it though, for many people, is I used biblical proverbial sayings to be the survey, as you want to say. So you ask yourself these questions as it relates to, okay, for instance, it will say, you know, the fool does X, Y, and Z. And your responsibility to say, do I do that? Am I foolish? Not because somebody came up to you and said, before, it's a self-analysis. People don't like that picture. I'd rather say this person is foolish or that person is dumb for doing what they did. But I don't like, you know, going around saying I'm dumb or I'm foolish. And so that accountability, they're like, Emunah, I just didn't finish it yet. I'm like, okay, let me know when you do.
Okay, I gotta get that book. Okay.
And so when I do Soulonomics, like I said, Soulonomics is building on that. because so many years ago I was frustrated. I'm like, well, why aren't they getting it? Why aren't they finished? It's only a journal. So I said, you know what? This time I'm gonna hold your hand a little bit. So this is the closest to me. This is the closest to me coaching right here. Because what's the word they use for people who can feel people's energy and get drained really quickly? Like an empath. Yeah. That's me. So I can't get too close to toxicity because I'll just be laid out. You know what I'm saying? I can't operate.
Right. I know. I'm the same way, which is why I just do the shows that I do. And people laugh at me when they say after, I tell people after the show, I have to have a cigar and I have to have my scotch. That's my cleansing and detoxing, if you will, because that energy and that conversation is heavy.
Heavy. It's too heavy.
Because people think it's like, oh, this is not entertainment for me, people. I'm doing this work just as Emunah is doing this work to change lives, change community, change and help empower our people. That's a lot of weight to carry every day. And when Emunah and I step out in front of you, we are well researched, we are well prepared, and we have to get it right every time.
Yeah, it's work.
And it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so that's the real part of it. And so you can't really do this. You can't fake this kind of work. You can't fake this fun.
No, you can't.
You really can't.
You know, after Roots series review, Brother Philippe, I was knocked out for about a week. Like I went I was like, I'll see y'all in a minute because I'm tired. You know,
man, after I watched the shows, absolutely. After I watched just watching Roots, I was just done.
Well, yeah, you get wiped out. It's energetically, it pulls a lot from you, and you have to know. You have to know how to balance yourself. You definitely
really do.
You really do. So you see me and Philippe like laughing. Laughing is a good way to raise your vibration, so that you don't stay in the dumps. You understand? So if you got
because natural, when you read like the slave narratives and all of this stuff, and whether it's just, the natural thought process is to become depressed.
Oh yeah.
It's like that's because there's nothing fun about it. It's anger and sadness, more and more different levels, and so you have to. And this is why I really respect the work that you do. You have to learn how to create and interject other emotions and other experiences in your life to dissipate that, so you can get the true understanding of the slave narratives and what this is, and then you can best share it with someone else and heal from it, learn from it, grow from it, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's why I you do what you do.
Before we go, I just want to share this one thing, Brother Philippe. I think the maddest I have been thus far with these slave narratives was last week, reading Henry.
Okay.
And I've been reading consecutively on air. And the thing with me is I'm reading live, and the earlier ones I read already, but these I'm reading as I am reading it to you. And so the emotions are coming out, and the people are like, Emunah. But Henry Box Brown, okay? Last week I was so upset. And I leave it at this to show that you have to understand the psychology of who you're dealing with. Henry Box Brown, or Henry is his name. Long story short, he married this woman, and the slave masters promised, we're never going to sell you guys. We don't want to break up your family. We're not like that. Cool. 1 year later, they sell his wife and child. The nether slave master says, we're never going to sell you, but I need you to give me money to buy your wife, and I promise you I won't sell her. Long story short, he threatens him. You see the psychology of the slave master, the European oppression. That's not the part. That part is surprising, but here's the most surprising part. The wife slave master falls in, she becomes ill. They call for the slaves to pray for the slave master, and he also calls for Henry. He says, pray for me, pray to God to heal me. And I'm thinking to myself, is he really about to do this? Right? Wow. And he's like, he thought the man was going to let his family go. So no, they prayed for him. The slaves went to work in the field, all for 3 days consecutively, made a midnight vigil, standing by this man's bed to pray for him. Brother Philippe, the narrative says on the third day, the man got up and sat at the table and got well. Okay. After he got well, he had a wife who was very terrible and wicked and cruel, as he was. And she began to mock him and say, oh, the only reason you're better is because your slaves prayed for you. You ready for this? And so he's like, no, they didn't. They didn't pray for me. She's like, yeah, your slaves, your Negroes, they're the one who prayed for you, and they're the one who made you better. He says, call for the slave. They called for the slaves. They came back and said, did you pray for me when I was sick? He said, yeah. They said, yes. No, first he said, the only reason I probably asked you to pray for me because I was delusional and out of my mind. So then he calls for the slaves, and the slaves prayed for him. They said, yes, master, we prayed for you when we were sick. He says, all right, cool. Guess what I'm going to do to you? You ready for this, Brother Philippe? What did he do to them for praying and allowing him to get better? What did he do? He beat them.
Really?
He whooped them one by one. And because he couldn't whip Henry, he sold his wife and children. This you got to understand.
Wow. But, wow.
When you hear me laughing, it's not from humor in this.
No, yeah, but no, it's just, yeah, it's that, what they call uncomfortable laughter. That is analogous to what we've been talking about. You know, the psychopath who killed 9 people in Charleston in the church,
and they prayed for him,
and the people, right, and the people prayed for him, and not just prayed for him, forgave him.
Yes,
that's what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. I'm coming from a different school of thought and a different train of thought. You come in and kill my family, I'm gonna pray for you and forgive you probably decades later. Because I'm going to probably end up doing something that I'm going to have to pray for and ask for my own forgiveness for what's going to happen. But this is, you know, and we're going to have this conversation, you and I, in subsequent shows. We need to talk about the successful aspect of how our minds were broken.
Correct.
We don't want to talk about, we don't want to admit this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, because that is probably the most horrific conversation. But we have to say that these sumbitches really did a good job on us. In breaking our minds to the point where we are slaves within our own self. We don't even have to be caged or anything. We are just operating every day as a slave.
And I think that's a good conversation, because at the end of the article that I was reading today concerning the quote black man who met the white man who owned the plantation, at the very end of his blog, he was saying oftentimes slaves didn't want to admit that they were slaves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, like what you're saying, mentally, you don't want to admit that, yes, I have a problem and this is where it's coming from. So before we're saying this is where it's coming from, and you're like, what's coming from? And they're like this, and you're like, what? Well, what is it? You don't want to name it. First, you have to name it and then identify it. You're trying to identify something that you're not naming. I'm not saying for you to claim it, to say this is why I have to be this way, but you have to at least acknowledge that if you're going to fight some kind of disease or some abnormality, you have to identify what it is first.
Right. That's right.
What are you suffering from? And you have to be honest about it. And that's one of the things that our people don't want to do, because in their minds, it means that you're weak. Mm-hmm. No, it means that you are descendants of enslaved individuals who have yet to heal. So
it is, well, yeah. As I said, I think we need to start pushing the agenda and the narrative that racism is terrorism. And the victims of this terrorism suffer from addiction of slavery and addiction of post-traumatic slave syndrome. And until we recognize this addiction, acknowledge this addiction, we're not going to heal.
And I think we need to, and I have a book in the room that speaks of addiction, because we need to further take a look at that as well. Like, and I'm glad you brought it up. Addiction is our way of coping with what it's trying to level yourself off. But it never happens. It never does it. You just keep needing more and more and more. So we have to break down addiction in and of itself and really go into what is your body saying that you need, or your mind or your soul or your spirit. You understand? So all of these things,
Mhm.
definitely, Brother Philippe, we definitely need to look at, because as a people, we self-medicate because the reality,
Yes.
we really don't have much access to certain things on an ongoing basis that really helps us with our reality. And one more thing, and I'll leave you with this, and I've been doing this, it's going to be 2 years now this October. It seems small. It's akin to what we're doing here, but it's more offline. Just wherever you are, open a space where people can speak. It's
Mm.
Listen, not online, not when anybody's a video, nothing, where people can be transparent, where they can speak their pain, where they can have support system of other people that look and sound just like them, and not judging them in that space and allowing them. It's called Take Time to Heal. I've been doing it for going to be 2 years, and every week they say, Emunah, thank you so much, because all I literally do is set the stage and allow you a voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's
And it's
beautiful.
revolutionary. People think it's because guess what? We have to learn to listen again. We have to learn to connect again. We're walking around disconnected from ourselves, and by extension, we're disconnected from one another. So, you know, it's simple. I come with simple solutions, ground force solutions, grassroots solutions, because that's where a seed germinates from, not from the sky, but from the ground.
Fantastic. All right, Emunah, what's the web address for people to get in contact with you and get some Soulonomics? Because I need some.
Y'all see, I'm working on Brother Philippe, right? I'm doing it on the air for you guys right now.
Thank you. Thank you. This is going to be one of my shows that I'm going to watch this show again after I finish hanging up from you.
You know, it's just, well, we just change it a little bit, and just, I know the emotions identify, yes, I'm feeling this way, but why? You know, where is it going? Is it justified? Is it unjustified? Even if it's justified, is the way I'm expressing myself, is that going to better or worsen the situation? All of these things, we have to have a conversation with ourselves. But you can check me out at www.emunahyisrael.com, and you could go to YouTube.
Spell it, because you know I can't spell your name.
Oh,
I finally got it right, but just for the people who are messed up like I am, go for it.
It's EMUNAHYSRAEL.com, Emunah Y'srael, and I'm on YouTube as well as Facebook. And yeah, definitely, the book is coming. I'm gonna link up with Brother Philippe and see if we can launch this book, and see if we can launch it to get it to a further reach, as well as those who need, you know. And these are the actual steps that I took into beginning to be in touch with my soul and being aware of myself. So I think,
yeah, we've definitely got to do that.
Yeah,
we've definitely got to do that. All right, but Emunah, thank you for being with me on this edition of Melanated Minds Conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, send your thoughts, hearts, and prayers to the Sterling family.
correct.
To that young boy who now will not have a father.
Yes.
Love him. Send him love. Send him support. Support that family. We are standing with you. We will not forget you. And you're going to get through this, because you have a village that is going to lift you up and hold you up through this. We'll see you guys next time on the Philippe Matthews Show After Hours with Emunah Y'srael. Take care, everybody.
All right, everybody.